saw an article that said that in the 30 years prior to 2015, $400 billion has been given to the black church. And by the black church, I mean churches, Christian churches in the United States that are that predominantly cater to the African American community. And I thought about that, and I thought, what could be accomplished if all of that money had been reinvested into the community? $400 billion, instead of going to assholes like Creflo Dollar. And that was, I thought about that, and that's been those kinds of questions have been very much on my mind because I live here in Atlanta, and I think being in the South, anyone who lives in the South grows up uniquely, not, I don't know about uniquely, but certainly profoundly aware of issues around race relations, because the history of it, the history that maybe the rest of the country and the rest of the world learns about in high school or learns about in textbooks and or documentaries and that kind of thing, is right there. It's right there in front of our faces down here in the southern United States, basically any state that tried to secede during World War II. It's right there for us. So you grow up aware of it. And I worry about I worry about the role or the way that Christianity is being adapted in recent times. Because 2 years ago, I got into a very heated argument with a friend of mine. When I say a friend, this is someone I went to the last 2 years of high school with. We were really, really good friends back then. He was black, I was white. We still are. But none of that could have meant less to us. And we were just deeply unified over, over music and the things we were passionate about. In the 20 plus years since he and I were friends in high school together, he's gone off and gotten radicalized. And I don't want to say his name. I don't think anyone who watches my videos would know who he is, but he is now a somewhat prominent blogger and activist. I feel like I should say, no, it's not Ghazi Konzo, not by a long shot. But no, it's just a guy I knew, and he's now an activist and everything. And he and I got into an argument a couple of years ago, and the nature of the argument was that it got to a point where he would post on Facebook everything. He was posting the most vicious, vile hatred of white people. And I understand I am not some kind of like white activist or anything. I have absolutely no desire to advance any kind of white agenda or white identity or anything like that. But obviously it's an objective aspect of who I am. I'm objectively identifiable that way, and so I would come home and fire up Facebook, and he would have these just horribly vicious things to say about white people, and you kind of think about it like, dude, are you putting me in that category? I mean, you gonna put me in that category? Am I gonna am I gonna be targeted when the revolution comes? And finally, it's the thing that really did it was he posted this thing one day that just said, "Hey, white people, just a reminder, it's not about your feelings, okay? Thanks." And I don't want to quote any of the other stuff that he posted because it's stuff that he has also posted other places and it would make him identifiable. So, but he posted that, and I wrote in, I said, dude, just posting these things on Facebook is not helping anybody. All you're doing is posting hateful statements on Facebook, you're not making the world a better place. You're not, this is not helping. And for an entire day, I was just getting submerged in angry messages from his friends and his supporters. And three people stood out in my mind. One was this militant black revolutionary who messaged me and told me I needed to be glad that I was not. He was in like St. Louis or something, some other city, and he said, "You better be glad you're not in St. Louis or whatever it was, or I'd come put a gun to your head and make you take back everything you said." And I had not said anything especially vicious or virulent. I said it much with the same tone that I'm speaking now. Another guy was that wrote to me. It was this kind of more, I guess, milk toast vegan hippie type, and he white guy, and he's like, "Dude, I just want you to know, if you want, we can have a private discussion where we can talk about where all of this anger and hatred is coming from." And I wrote back and I said, "Dude, I'm not angry. I swear I'm not angry. I'm put out with the person in question because he's a friend, and I feel like I feel like he's being unfair and he's wasting his time and being very hurtful, etc., etc. But I'm not angry. This is just how I feel, and I'm not. I don't have some, if you're trying to get me to have some." Break down and admit to being some kind of disaffected white man or something like that. That's like secretly on a alt-right mailing list or something. That's not me. I'm not that guy. And it's funny. The first guy I could almost kind of respect, but that second guy is just really awful. You know. But then the third person that spoke, that I remember contacting me, was this woman who said, "You need to apologize for trying to silence," name of person, the person that I was arguing with. "You need to apologize for trying to silence him." I said, "I didn't try to silence him. Like, I didn't. All I did was disagree with him. Disagreeing with someone is not silencing them." And and just went on, and I could call up tiny things that people said throughout all that. But the point of that being, obviously, he and I have not spoken since then, and he terminated our Facebook connection. But I thought about that, and it really worried me because, we have so many of these kind of social justice movements going on right now and everything, and this really worries me because I think it stands to unhinge a lot of the progress that has been made in terms of race relations, because it's going to re-radicalize people unnecessarily at a time when we should be coming together and we should be focusing on working together. And more recently, this was on my mind because a few days ago, sorry, I've got a kitty that wants to play, so go after that. A few days ago, I got into another argument with another black friend, and it's another from the same high school that I graduated from, which was a predominantly black high school, and which, by the way, when I was there, I was totally accepted. I never felt like an outsider at all. There was like zero racial tension at all that I experienced. I mean, I can think of like one or two dust ups, but people are going to fight. Kids are going to fight in high school anyway. But there was like just no racial tension at all. Not dust ups involving me, other people. I felt totally accepted and totally fine the whole time I was there. But anyway, another friend from the same school, and she posted some nonsense, and I pointed out just where what she was saying was logically wrong. And I really shouldn't get involved in these things. And I hate to be a person that's just going to go through Facebook and unfriend people every time I see something that I don't agree with. But at the same time, it's at the same time I don't want to keep having these discussions and these arguments. Like, if you've decided that this is how you feel about every single white person, then you feel that way about me too, and there's no reason for us to keep having these discussions. Anyway, I just said, and again, I don't want to get into the actual discussion. I want to get into the nature of how it played out, which was I just said, like, here, you're wrong about this, 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 and this. And her response was to say, Jordan, you have no opinion. You're a white man. You don't get to have an opinion about this. And you're a white man. You have privilege that you don't know about, and you don't get to have an opinion. And I said, I do have an opinion. I will continue to have an opinion. You will not tell me that I'm not allowed to have an opinion. And at that point, she accused me of being a covert racist operative. And I said, you have known me. I said, name of person, you have known me since high school. You know I'm not a racist operative. I'm not a covert racist. I'm not working to undermine you. I'm just pointing out where you're objectively wrong. Another person got into the discussion, and we argued back and forth a little bit. But with her, she was adamant. She said, she said, you are my oppressor. I will not justify myself to you who are my oppressor. I said, you know I'm not oppressing you. And then it goes into the, yes, but you're a white person that's feeding off of this wonderful system that's put in place to only cater to white people at the expense of minorities, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, I don't have to explain to you how my oppression. I don't have to convince you that my oppression is real. I live with it every single day. She lives in Atlanta, here in Atlanta with me as well. So bear that in mind. But I said, how are you oppressed every day? And she said, and she said, I don't have to justify it to you. You're my oppressor. And I said, well, you know that I am not oppressing you directly. So when you say this, it makes me think that the skeptic in me thinks you don't actually experience any oppression on a day-to-day basis. That's what I think. I think that every time I've asked you to explain what it is that you are, the oppression that you're living with every single day, you have come back with, I don't have to, either you couldn't understand, or you can't possibly know, or I don't have to justify myself to you, or anything like that. And it makes me think that you're not actually oppressed. It makes me think that this is just something you say to get out of having a discussion. And, so it escalated more and more, and she was, kind of foaming at the keyboard and telling me that telling me that I was her enemy, and again, what would happen to her enemies and all of this. And I took the opportunity to say something that's really been on my mind. Because that last friend that I told you about, the one that had the argument with a couple of years ago, he's a minister of some sort, or I don't know his exact title, but that was apparently what he studied in college, and he is a Christian and an evangelist, and going out and speaking the word of God, and using all of this rage and hatred and contempt and anger, justifying it with that. And so I finally said to her, I said, aren't you a Christian? Why are you trying to have enemies? Why are you trying to make an enemy out of me when I'm not even trying to be your enemy? Why do you have to, why are you looking for enemies? Why are you not looking to reconcile? Why are you not looking for compassion? Why are you not looking towards forgiveness of your enemies? Where is this coming from? Because that's really been on my mind. I've really wondered about that, because I thought about, like a lot of people, I saw the debate, the monk debate that Jordan Peterson and Michael Eric Dyson were a part of. And, there were other people on that panel, but let's be honest, that turned into just a debate between Michael Eric Dyson and Jordan Peterson. And Michael Eric Dyson was working off of this same script that I think that a lot of these same he is a preacher, if you will, of the same rhetoric and the same propaganda that was being regurgitated by these former friends of mine that who now saw me as an enemy. And I encourage anyone to go watch the Monk debate. But the whole time, Michael Eric Dyson's whole thing in that whole debate was he was just throwing everything he could at Jordan Peterson, trying to get him to flinch. Because there's a point where he actually shouts at him, "You're a mean, mad white man," and then he says, "You mad, brah?" Which, I mean, that's that's almost fighting language right there. But anyway, uh, so that goes, watching that, I saw someone who, I didn't know who Michael Eric Dyson was before that, but I looked into him more and more, and I realized he is one of the people who is pushing this race baiting, hate mongering garbage that is just corroding the corroding race relations, and somehow is getting indoctrinated or getting incorporated into black Christianity in some way. So I asked this friend of mine, I said, "How are you a Christian? How are you a Christian and you don't, uh, you act this way? Where's the turning the other cheek? Where's the prayer and compassion for your enemies? Where is the reconciliation? Where is all of this? What, you know, and where is that love and compassion?" And she responded to me and said that she was a Christian, but that she was a true Christian, a real Christian, who practiced Christianity as it's supposed to be practiced, because she said that Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus Christ, is, and so this is actually what she said. She said, the story of Jesus Christ is the story of a proud black man rising up to lead his black followers in an uprising against their white oppressors, and that that I was one of the white enemies of Jesus Christ, etc., etc., and that she said that the version of Christianity that I had come to understand and come to embrace was a propaganda created by white people in the 1500s to oppress blacks, and that it was a corruption of what it actually was supposed to mean. So, in other words, all she had done was just reinterpret what people have done for thousands of years, which was to reinterpret Christianity to be exactly what she wanted it to be, so that she could go right on hating the people she wanted to hate. And that really bothers me, and that really worries me, because in that Monk debate, Michael Eric Dyson tells Jordan Peterson that he says you need to go to he said you need to go talk to a First Nations community, and it turns out that Jordan Peterson actually has a friend who's First Nations and is very deeply involved with that. So Dyson switches gears and says, well, something like, we need to come down to a Black Baptist church sometime and actually have an actual discussion about race. And it's funny, because as much as I think about these things, and I think about this, I lived for 5 years in Mississippi, and in Oxford, Mississippi. And when I was there, the priest at the church we went to was a man named Duncan Gray III. Duncan Gray's father was obviously Duncan Gray II, and Duncan too is notable because he was an Episcopal priest as well. And when when James Meredith was integrated into the University of Mississippi, the first night that happened, there were riots in the streets on the University of Mississippi campus. There were riots. There were gunshots. There was arson. There was, I mean, it was blowing up on an apocalyptic level that night. There were huge riots in the streets happening. That night, Duncan too walked the streets of the University of Mississippi with a lot of other people, and he, wore his collar, and he went around to people and went up to them, knowing that, when they saw the collar, they would, if they saw a holy man, they would calm down and disperse, calm down and uh, relax a little bit or become less aggressive, become more passive. And he went around to people and, at extreme risk to himself, went up to rioters and calmed them down and told them to go home. Calmed down, got them to go home. And he walked the university campus the whole night doing that. If you've ever seen any kind of street riot, the next time you see a real good riot on TV where things are going up in flames and people are getting beaten to death and everything, you think about going around trying to calm people down and get them to stop rioting. Do you really think that when Duncan did that, Duncan 2 did that, that he was acting with the intention of oppressing the black community? That was a malevolent, anglicized version of Christianity, a malevolent, anglicized version of a Nubian faith that had been perverted to oppress the black community? I think not. And what people like Michael Eric Dyson and the unfortunate acolytes like my two former friends, what they've done is tried to win every argument by saying, well, I'm black and you're white, therefore I'm right. And that is an extraordinary smack in the face to race relations in general and to blacks, to the black community. The very idea that in lieu of an ability to have an actual rational discourse, you just race bait to the point that the mere topic of discussion is so white hot that, no pun intended, so white hot that nobody can touch it, and then you use that as a weapon to go around just clearing people out of your way. That is not intellectual. That is not compassionate. And for the first time in my life, I will say this: that is unchristian. If you want to be a revolutionary and you want to go fight for your race, well, I think that's stupid, whatever race you're a part of. But if you want to do that, don't do it in the name of a faith that stresses love for your enemies, love for your, that stresses compassion for those that persecute you. Because it's not for nothing at all, that we, that idea is stressed in Christianity. Because that philosophy is the product of people who looked at the nature of the human race and said, man, if we don't diffuse this, if we don't find a way to diffuse this, it is going, the human race will not continue. and in the era of nuclear arms, all the more so. And Michael Eric Dyson challenged Jordan Peterson to come down to a black uh, Baptist church. I would challenge Michael Eric Dyson to come down to Atlanta because I'm sorry, but Atlanta is a mecca of black prosperity. And if there is systemic disenfranchisement of blacks elsewhere in the country, then we need to take what's happening in Atlanta and export it. And that's a good thing, by the way. I much prefer to see economic prosperity than economic poverty and stagnation. But it weighs on me. This really weighs on me because growing up in the South and seeing that right in the face, being face to face with the history of that, it's very profound to me, and it really worries me what we're doing. Nelson Mandela said that holding on to hate is Nelson Mandela said holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. And the man did almost 30 years in prison on trumped up charges. Has spent the majority of his life in prison, having his rights and his freedoms and his hope and everything taken away from him. And if he can walk out of that prison and make that statement, truly in his heart make that statement, then I think you can forgive whatever microaggression caused you to go post a bunch of hateful crap on Facebook. Because I'm sorry, I've read the story of Jesus many times. And, I don't know exactly what ethnicity he was. It was probably some Mediterranean extraction. But irrespective of his ethnicity, what he looked like doesn't matter. And also, by the way, I do know that the popular depiction of Jesus, basically the beard and long hair, what I'm rocking right now, I actually know that came out of the Renaissance, and I believe, as I recall, there was actually a major warlord that posed for a bunch of paintings of Jesus, and that's where that look came from. So, and he did that for propagandized purposes. So I know that the popular look of Jesus is probably not what he looked like, but it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, I mean, it is not the story of it's not the story. It is the story of rising up against oppression, but not rising up against depression in any kind of mortal sense. It's it's a story of it is a story of inwardly and spiritually rising up against depression, refusing to be beaten down, and showing people that refusing to be beaten down is and transcending that whatever pain that they have that they can inflict on you renders the oppression irrelevant. It's the story of a man who suffered unbelievable persecution at the hands of a very corrupt government and said, "Forgive them, they know not what they do." That is the profundity that is being corrupted and ignored by this very toxic brand of Christianity. It's not even Christianity. It's just militant agitation with token references to Christian tropes is really all it is. And I shudder to think that people like Michael Eric Dyson are working to undo, working for no other reason than I think their own gain and their own pursuit of power, are working to undo one of the most critical and important elements of uh, the progress that we've made in terms of race relations, which has been the role that the church has played as a unifier and as an equalizer of people, that we are all God's children and we are all equal before God, equal in the eyes of God, that we work to undo those things. And we do, I think we do so at our own peril and at our own risk. Anyway, hopefully I've made some sense.